play. I have a special guest for us today. Her name is Susan Bornstein. And Susan and I um, were connected through Facebook online before we had the chance to meet in person, which we did this past summer in Arkansas at Zoology Fest. So, for those of you who are on here, um, Zoology is a platform on Facebook and also on YouTube. And it came about as a platform to connect what I'll call Soul Tribe. And it allows people to share the experiences that they've had in their life and they continue to have in their life. And it's a very powerful platform. It seems to validate a lot of people's experiences and feelings, and it seems to have a common thread of um, navigating this particular time that we are living through right now on Earth. So, in any case, it was through Zoology that I befriended Susan Bornstein. And then I got to meet her this summer in Zoology Fest, where lots of people from that platform came together in a gathering to be with each other for 3 days. And now here Susan and I are live together. So welcome, Susan. Thank you for coming on here today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for asking.
Um, so uh back to the Zoology thing. If you would like to see previous videos of Zoology, there's a YouTube channel called Zoology One Studios. Or you can just type in Zoology in your search bar and it will lead you there. And then you could look for videos with Susan there by typing in her name. And one thing that Susan shared with us at the Zoology Fest and has continued to talk about with Todd a little bit since then. Todd Medina is the creator of Zoology. And what? So your father passed away when you were how old?
When to year 21,
20,
1974. Yeah,
1970.
21.
And since then, he hasn't left your life. In other words, you and he are still in contact, and you communicate with each other.
Well, not really. I mean, after he died, I got angels on my right shoulder who walked me through the whole time after he died and funerals and family things. And they just sat there on my right shoulder and told me what to do. But my dad gave me those angels. And then I proceeded to try to forget everything that my dad had talked about as best I could. And
Why did you try to forget it?
on my dinner table when I was a kid was my dad going, "We are light, pure, glorious, creative, magnificent light. All stories and reasons are rendered null and void. We are only light." And my mother screaming, "Shut up. Nobody wants to hear this. You'll always be alone. If you never expressed yourself, the world would be a better place," etc., etc., etc. And my dad didn't flinch. He could scream at it. He didn't care. But me, I thought it was quite awful. And besides, I love expressing myself, and I'm not supposed to express myself. And really, I didn't like this. So, and now, just recently, I've been remembering being on ships with my sister and my dad, and the 14 angels or 13 angels, and but that was my mom's thing. It just if you mentioned anything paranormal in our lives, she'd just explode on you. Like you would be screamed at for days. So we just put it away. But much my dad didn't put away. He was fine. He just kept talking and he kept telling us stuff. But yeah, I was affected. She was like, definitely, you don't do this. You don't think this. You don't talk about this. You have to get along with people. Was her thing. So yeah, I have this trauma that screams. The first about 7 years ago. No, 7 years ago. I went to a meeting, an AA meeting, and I used to, I went to AA in 1990, but every 7 years I would drink again. So it came to my 7-year anniversary again. And I said, if I don't do something, if I don't become more true to my spiritual life now, I'll drink again. Right. So I went to an AA meeting and I got up there and I said what my dad said about being light. And because if I don't do this, this doesn't continue. This is my spirituality. This is what it means to me. And then I went home and this voice just went, you never say that again. You never talk about these things. You never, like this whole thing, just that conditioning to not put it out there. And then I had another teacher who said, okay, now your dad has passed you the torch. You're the messenger. So I had to say it a lot. And yes, I'm getting over this withdrawal as soon as you think about mentioning such things. So yeah, so that's why I think I put it away. But 2011, am I still talking? I'm talking a lot.
No, this is good. That's why you're here.
Oh yeah. I heard Maureen Moss and Patricia Cote Robles on the same day on the internet say, now is the time that you serve just by being yourself. And time stopped and I went, wait, that's my dad. And so then I started paying attention to what was going to be 2012 soon. And I just started opening the whole thing up and remembering everything. And because now is the time. This is it. This is what I came for. So my mom, by the way, she softened up. She was a bitch from hell when I was a kid, but has transformed over her whole life in amazing ways. So she has redeemed that nasty experience over time.
Did she ever become comfortable with talking about paranormal stuff, or did she just become softer? No.
Between 2010 and 2017, she talked to me about it a lot, connected all the dots, told me all sorts of stories. 2017, there was that eclipse that you could see from the States. And my dad had talked about that eclipse. So I asked her about it. Like, what do you know about it? And she said, I will never talk about this stuff again, ever. And she never has. So now we talk about what she had for dinner. She's 98. Mind you, lately, she's softening up a bit right now because it's now. Because this is now.
So, when is the last time your dad contacted you or sent you a message? Or when is the last time you guys had sort of a conversation, so to speak?
Between 2010 and 2020, just a few times, I get this huge smiling countenance going, you're not missing this, are you? But come 2020, I started reaching out for him. I got a good one. In 2020, we were in lockdown for about a month. And I said, okay, Dad, what the fuck is going on? And he said, a body is dying, but it's not the human body. It's civilization. And it's shutting down one organ at a time. And I said, what happens when the organs shut down? And he said, what happens to the human body when the organs shut down? So I said, well, it embodies its soul. He said, that's what happens. And then it turns around and it faces the stars. That was like crystal clear. Right? And then Christmas 2020, I was like, it was very intense. So I called my dad and my angels and we talked, but it felt to me like we weren't. But we were, but I took it in anyways. There was this cloud between us, but I took it all in. And then after I went to Soology Fest, I came back and I was listening to a guy who was at Soology Fest, Harold, somebody.
Oh,
and he was talking, about his first contact, how young he was, like he was 6 or something when he first saw aliens. So right there, I just remembered all the ships my sister and I and my dad were on. We were like observers. If it got intense, we got a light bubble that those angels would they would make a bubble of light around us so that we could watch because the frequency was too high. And we went to many and very different ships with my dad, who was a CIA trained American Army vet. So his intel was pretty good. And yeah, so what happened? And then I just went back up to that ship and because it was my favorite place. And they told me I could sit on this council now. It was a council very concerned with the ascension of the universe. That was their point of council. And so I started sitting there and that's been very cool. And the solstice came, and my dad said I called him, though I don't remember doing it deliberately. And he came down in a dream, and his eyes were all bloodshot. And he said, I can't come down this low. So he went back up to that council, and he just going, okay, it's happening now. And it's happening so fast. And I gave my whole last human lifetime to this. So I'm just going to hang up here and watch, because it's all this right now. This is it. This is what I told you about. This is what I meant. It's not tomorrow. It's not next week. It's now. So now I can just go up to that council and ask him anything, and he will answer anything. I mean, like anything, like stupid stuff, like banal nonsense. He'll talk to me about. So that's great. I didn't expect that, and he said he didn't either. But now that he's here, but now he's going to hang out for a while.
Mm-hmm. Um. Yeah, I've been exploring that for a good part of my lifetime too. Like, the fact that we literally are light. That we are made of light, and that um, it it depends on, I guess, where you get your information from, or who you talk to, but it's whether we knew it all along or whether we forgot, or now is such a great time to be on earth, because more and more of the population is reflecting that acknowledgement, and that we are light, to include the scientific community, reminding us that we are light. And I always say it's not that we need the approval of the scientific community, because many things that the ancients knew long ago didn't need scientific proof. They simply were. But I guess what I do like about the scientific community coming forward and uh, admitting certain things is that people who maybe aren't there yet, as far as broadening their mind, or maybe there's too much programming, or maybe they haven't had that sense of themselves, when it is, at least in our culture, so many people will, I mean, they bow to science. So when science says, hey, you are light, then more, I think, minds open up to it. So that's the aspect of it that I think is positive. um, I remember hearing a story once. I don't remember whether I heard it or read it, but it was a story about a Tibetan monk that was put in jail when the Chinese took over, and he was in there for about a decade, and all he did is meditate and focus on his rainbow body. And one day, the guards walked past, and underneath the door, shooting out into the hall, was all this rainbow light. And they just opened the door and let him go. Because, right? Because I mean, I don't know how they computed that intellectually, but it would become obvious that that being wasn't going to be contained. That being was far beyond its physical body and far beyond a jail cell. So they're like, oh, well, not going to contain this guy. He can't even contain himself. He's rainbow light. So, yeah, that always really stuck with me. And I won't go into it too much, because I invited you here today to talk about yourself. But um, recently, I made contact with a past life where I was very much um, connected to my I am presence, and very much connected to source, and knew myself to be love. And I was very powerful, like the kind of power where you can put your staff on the ground and part the seas, that kind of power. And the patriarchy found me to be really a threat. And so they decided to do away with me. And I won't go into all the details. And it's happened to many of us in our past lives. Um, but what happened is that imprint made my focus shift from love to fear. And so I forgot my power, I forgot my wisdom. I um, was my disconnection to source was broken. Source can never break the connection, right? You're always connected to source. We just forget, right? In her case, she didn't feel safe because she sat there hanging by her feet, wondering, like, well, where is source now? How come source isn't helping me out of this conundrum, this terrible conundrum? And thoughts like, well, if I wouldn't have been this powerful in the first place, this never would have happened, you know? And that imprint came through so strongly in this lifetime that I was born with deformities in my feet. Clubbed feet, it's called. There's a million kinds, pigeon toed is a form of clubbed feet. There's all sorts. But, anyways, I had my own um, form of clubbed feet. So, without going further into that story, um, basically, I became, when my focus shifted from love to fear, I forgot that I am love. And I withdrew my energy from source, and I withdrew my energy from my I am presence. And the imprint of that experience was so strong that it followed me right into this lifetime in a physical way. The imprint was there. And I say it because we opened up by talking about that we are light. And um, there are so many of us who are remembering that right now and actualizing that. And I mean, I'm not like that monk that was in the prison cell where I walk around and people just see my rainbow light, you know. Um, I think it's not something that we have to become. It's merely something that we uncover as we discover these imprints that follow us, or we work through these traumas and these emotions and these beliefs to remember
When I was
what
19,
we are. Mm-hmm.
my dad took the whole family to France and England to show us all the whorehouses he went to when he went AWOL in the Second World War. It was a strange trip, but we were in Paris, and I was 20, and I was wearing this full-length dress slid up to the crotch and leaning against the window in the red light district of Paris. And some guy comes up to me and hands me 50 francs or something. And my dad just got really angry and took the money and gave it back to the man and said, "Come here," and held both my hands until I was light. And everything around me was light, just buoyant, joyous light. And he said, "This is who you are." I'm going, "Okay, what do I do with this light?" He said, "What do you want to do with it?" And I exploded into rage. Like, you sent me to school and you made me sit down and shut up and told me what to do and told me what to say. And my mother's been screaming at me for my whole life. And you never told her to shut up either. And I was just angry and I just shut it all out. And I think he was really being the protective dad, and some guy was making a pass at me in the red light district. Um, but I remember, and I don't know if I remembered that experience really clearly until like about 12 years ago. But
Why do you think that when he held your hands and you had that transmission and that knowing of being light, that it caused you to go into rage?
well, it's nice to blame my mom, but it's my resistance. She was the voice of my resistance, the voice of fear, the voice of resistance in any form you like: anger, rage, fear, whatever you want to call it. It's no. It's like, I'm not letting God run through this body today. And yeah, it was just my resistance. I did a session with Morgan uh, because I was frustrated, because I surround myself with people, or I was. It's changing a bit, but a lot. It's changing a lot. With people who would just go, "I don't understand you. You're weird. I don't know what you're talking about." And I'm going, "Why do I constantly do this, no matter?" And the answer came, what was, you tied yourself to the collective timeline. Everything changes, like I tied my ascension to the collective ascension. So I get empowered as we get empowered. And so there are lots of frustrating points, and they're not going to move until we all move. So stay on it. Yeah, you can run the cutting edge because you care about this stuff, but we're all going to. My dad's thing was, you will see in your lifetime the earth and all humanity change. He did not say half of humanity is going to change. He did not say somebody's not going to make it. He said everything, the whole thing goes as one thing. There's only one, and it all changes. So yeah. So there's no worry that I'm not. So all these fears come. I'm not going to make it. I'm not good enough. I'm not spiritual enough. I don't have the power. Or I made the wrong decision. Nonsense. We all go. It doesn't matter. And if he looks like an idiot, idiots go too. Everybody goes. So you just play your role. The one who cares the most goes first. So if you really care, do this first. But it's a collective thing, right? So, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. So if you're watching this now or on the replay and you don't know who Morgan is, she said she did a session with Morgan. So Morgan and Todd are the two people who represent Soology. Soology came to them and asked to be birthed, and so Morgan is Todd's wife, and she does sessions with people. You can find her at zeropointing.com. Um, yeah, a question or a thought came up. Well, this whole experiencing that I'm still, it's fresh. It happened on February 13th. That unite, remembering that past life remembrance, and so my body is still released. It's been a very interesting experience, but it is helping me to remember and clear and align again um with my I am presence, and remember myself as love and as light. And
I have a similar past life memory
do you?
that happened. I don't know when that was now, 2013. My grandson, I was babysitting for my grandson, and he had a nap. So he was really little. And I lay down, and my neck made this enormous noise cracking. And then I had this memory of being 15 somewhere. And there was this man trying to form a town. And I totally believed in or knew about plant medicine and how to work the natural world. But I wasn't very old. But I was very vocal. So anyways, I was hung. Mostly it was like political. It wasn't because I was a witch or anything. It was because I was speaking up against what this guy wanted to do, and he just wanted me out of the way. So I was sentenced for being a witch and hung. Nobody spoke up for me. My parents didn't say a word. Everybody just let it happen. And I had 24 hours before I was hung. And in those 24 hours, I raged and so I thinking of some of the rage I have experienced in this lifetime came from that lifetime.
Well, it's very interesting. I wonder if that wasn't part of the spark that created that was behind the rage when your dad told you you were light.
Possibly,
Because in
yeah.
that lifetime, you knew yourself to be light, and now here he is telling you that, and that's like telling you you're going to get killed to your central nervous system that remembers that experience, right? It's like, no, I'm not light, because if I'm light, I might get hung. So just don't tell me that.
And I was really upset about that experience for weeks and weeks and weeks until I was studying transcendental meditation, and it kind of hit me. So what happens when you died? What happens when you were hung? Well, you go to pure awareness. Oh, well, that's not so bad. I'll just be quiet and I'll be happy with it. So then I was better with it.
Wow. Um, it's hard to ask questions, because then it often brings us to the intellect that wants to answer the question, right? So is there something you could tell us that is like beyond your intellect, just your inner knowing, your heart, your wisdom, what what are you experiencing as far as what is happening right now on this earthly plane, um, either with the earth herself or with humanity or nature or all of it? What, how can you speak to that?
Well, there's a lot of things, actually. First thing I thought of is humanity is falling together. In 2017, I was doing a bunch of things and listening to a bunch of people, and just came to this thing that we have to fall together, because if we're going to be interstellar, no one has ever channeled individuals. You channel collectives and subcollectives. So humanity has to become one voice. And all we do is separate 24/7 all day long. How is that going to change? And I wrote a bunch of people I knew and asked them about it, and nobody knew what I was talking about particularly. But I had that, and now, but I can feel it all. I felt it maybe, I guess, since 2020, sort of, but this year a lot. It's just a feeling in my body. And talking to people, I've had times where I talk to people and most of the conversation, they completely gap. They're staring into space, just like normal everyday people I know on the street. Like we're just, so in that space where we're not communicating at all and not even aware, though, because then the conversation continues as if that didn't happen. Like, it's strange. We're falling together. Our consciousness is falling together. And so that's one experience. As far as nature, I experience a lot of stuff, but the electromagnetics, none of my appliances work. Nobody's appliances are working. They order parts. The parts aren't coming because supposedly there's transportation issues. And then the computers and everything, like the electromagnetics are just, people go, oh, well, it's this and that. And we go and try and solve problems. But the electromagnetics are changing drastically every day. And everybody's trying to ignore that. And when I say that, they don't want to listen to me, but I think it's true. And then
Well,
I just have my vision. All right, so,
your vision.
which changed a lot when I reconsidered Arkansas a couple of months ago, or a month ago, or whatever. So my intel was the Earth is gone. The Earth became a sun star in December 2012. And I've experienced myself as the light of that sun star. And from the sun star, we can dream a new Earth, another plane of Gaia, Terra, Sophia, whatever. And this is a hologram being generated essentially completely by human memory. But it can't hold because there's no active creation going on here. This is just the memory desiccating, disintegrating.
Wow.
But then there's ascension.
How?
There's a third point. I had 2 points before.
Yeah.
But now there's a third point. The third point is ascension, like Christ did ascension. Like Christ burned every cell of his carbon body and invested it in higher order creation. So that's happening here too. It's not just disintegrating. The essence of that dream that was this world for so many years gets dreamed up and goes to higher order creation. And from there, we dream a new Earth, like we dreamed the first Earth, from infinity, from scratch, from source.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I saw that happening in Arkansas one day, realizing what was going on. And so I've been like focusing on that. And I did a session with that guy I learned transcendental meditation from, and he changed all his techniques to scalar techniques. Everything's about taking that trace of what's left of everything you could not vaporize, of all the negativity that no matter how hard you worked on it, still seems to be there. Take the essence of that and move it up right? Into something we don't know yet. So yeah, so now there's a third point going. Not sure what that means. So we move. So the idea was the Earth will shake. is my intel from my dad. And my angels say it's very, very likely, not guaranteed, but the earth will shake. Very, very likely. But when it shakes in the hologram, that's going to be a disaster. When it shakes on the other side, it's creation. You're creating. It's the
Mm-hmm.
tectonic plates are rising. The land will rise, and it won't belong to anyone. And now you have a new earth
Mm-hmm.
that's totally different. So it's
Mm-hmm.
going to it will happen in both. So I'm going to
Realms.
focus on that side, on the creative side, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to the disintegrating side. But
Mm-hmm.
every experience will, but it won't feel like a real experience. It won't feel like anything is actually happening in your life unless you're creating a new earth. Nothing is going to happen in the hologram. You can solve every problem you like. It's going to be dead. It's just
Mm-hmm.
nothing's going to move.
Yeah.
So that's what I got. I don't know.
I mean, we are Earth. I think Earth is so misunderstood. I think aliens and extraterrestrials and all that stuff is misunderstood too. I mean, Earth is a multi-dimensional portal just like we are, and I think what we've been calling, aliens are really interdimensionals. I mean, the planets are, by some understood to be um, Earth in different octaves, or Earth in the past or Earth in the future or whatever. So we think of, aliens coming from, like, out there. Well, maybe from another dimension. I see it more as them being interdimensionals. Um, and I'm not arguing with anybody. I'm just sharing my perspective. But it's interesting what you said about the shaking, because I've been allowing my body to release, and not control the situation, and I was outside releasing some of this, the trauma and the pain that my body is wanting to let go of at this time because of that past life. And all of a sudden, I just started shaking. So I'll go back to this in a minute, but, I've been using something that I recently learned to help me. Um, I'm taking a class with my mentor, and it's called Transforming Trauma. And I'll come back to that in a minute. But in any case, I was standing there with my bare feet on the ground, and, you know, my whole body just started shaking, which is the way that we release trauma. I always try to remind people, if this ever comes up, like, if somebody it has just had a traumatic experience or a shock and they're shaking, that's their body's way of releasing the trauma and the shock so that it doesn't get stuck in the body. And people always want to be like, oh, it's okay, it's okay. And they want to stop shaking because they're not comfortable with the fact that the person is shaking. But it's really important to let them shake so that that doesn't freeze in the body. And so, in any case, I was shaking, and I started to say something, like a prayer or a decree. And even I was like chattering, like you chatter when you get cold.
Mm.
And it was just a huge release. So I heard the parallel, and I had to address that. When you say the earth shakes, it's like, yeah, I'm shaking too, as I, you know, let go, as my body lets go of this cellular memory. Our emotions and our thoughts and our experiences in this lifetime and other lifetimes, they those imprints are so strong that they become part of our cellular structure. Like, it's
This,
absolutely unfathomable to most minds to think, well, there's no way that she was born with club feet because of this past life experience. And I can viscerally say from my experience that, yes, it was an imprint. It was an imprint that imprinted me so strongly that it followed me from one life to this life. And it's
when I studied ceramics, I'm a potter. We studied architectonics, which was like how the tectonic plates are made and how they move. And we also studied like clay and what its molecular structure is. So the earth shaking is supposed to be about the land rise. Atlantis sank, the land rises. The earth used to be mostly land and some water. Now it's mostly water and some land. Yes. So the earthquakes are supposed to come from the land rising. But then again, consciousness is rising. So the whole point is everything is rising, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that made me think of
I
something.
had some cool dreams at Christmas time. Someone I was sleeping and someone I was just standing straight upright awake of the earth just shaking. And then about 6 weeks ago, I had this vision while I was walking of the earth shaking like for days, like not like an earthquake and it stops, like 10 days. It'll just be moving. And how are you going to handle that? I don't know. We'll see. But in 20, I was harmonic convergence in 1987.
Mhm.
I was very, very affected. Like the way people's lives are blowing apart these days, my life just blew apart back then. And then I started reading books and studying stuff and changing my whole aspect, my vision of life. But I had an experience for harmonic convergence supposedly happened in August, between August and November 1987. And for those 3 months, when I would walk a lot, and I'd feel every time I went for a walk that when I put my foot down on the earth isn't going to be there. And with every step, I felt that, and I'd walk for like 3 hours like that. And that lasted 3 months and it stopped. So that was interesting. I don't know anyone else who's really had that experience much. Yeah, I don't think.
There's a great visual in the movie The Little Buddha where Buddha is walking, and every time he takes a step, a lotus flower blooms. It's created under his feet. And lately, when I do walking meditation out in front of my house, I enjoy envisioning that. Well, yeah, I mean, you know, everything is connected, and right now, you know, the Earth's poles are shifting as it does, periodically, and it's also happening on the sun, and it's happening in us, and even the way that there's some information floating around about the
The spin.
rotational spin of inner Earth, and that makes sense to me too. As a matter of fact, Drunvalo Melchizedek in one of his books, maybe it's Ouroboros that he talks about it. He said that will so all you're talking about the tectonic shifting of the plates and whatnot, and he was saying when that spin goes fast enough in the opposite direction that it's been going, that does greatly disturb the Earth's mantle.
The thing is, we've been living, especially on Earth, under inversion. The inversion of perception, which I got from reading Castaneda, exists to hold the images of a dream. And we turn everything upside down. But on Earth, we just held that for 16,000 years and refused to let it go at all. That all sentients will do it if they like dreaming a world and dreaming a body. But they do it a little and then they let it go. Or they do it all the time. Create, let go, create, let go. We went, no, this is it. This is real. This is all there is. And we held it for a ridiculous amount of time so that it's outrageously painful at this point. So yeah, my dad said a couple of weeks ago, this is the end of inversion for the entire binary universe. So Earth is going through stuff. Every sentience in this universe is doing the same thing. Inversion is gone. So don't worry about aliens who are going to take advantage of you too much, because nobody can do it anymore. Nobody can fight anymore. There's nothing to fight over. You only fought in inversion. You can't. If we're all spiraling the same direction, there's no more wars anywhere in this universe. But,
well, the necessity of a war is based on illusion, and so much of life is based on illusion. What I don't know. I should go look it up. I'm curious. I mean, not right now, but later. I know that there's something about the eyes, right? That we don't see really the way that things are. We turn it.
Yeah, I
right?
studied that in perception class. Yeah, we flipped.
Yeah.
They gave us
We flip
glasses.
it. Yeah, we flip
The
the image.
glasses flipped all your images. It took half an hour for the brain to adjust and flip them back upright. But the retina inverts the image. So I was wondering if the poles flip, if our eyes will see differently. I don't know. But it wouldn't take long to adjust anyways. So.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Um, how are you with impermanence?
Which me?
The one answering the question.
Oh, okay. Right now, yeah, that's it. That's really exciting. That's the orgasm. That's like to get to this point where there's just us and we're here and total presence and we live because nothing has to be repeated. Nothing is an obligation. No social code. Just life. I keep feeling it's quite imminent on some level, and then that's it. That's the orgasm. In my lifetime, I've like been all my art teachers. Their best advice to me was, "Fuck, loosen up. You are so tight. You hold on. So let it go." So in my lifetime, I've had varying degrees of clinging to everything. Artistically, I'll do it, and I'm trying to do it more and more in my life. Yeah, yeah. Now it's rushing. It's speeding. It's this like the 11th hour towards. Why repeat anything twice? Like, well, maybe twice, never 3 times. Um,
So
but
impermanence, impermanence of our body, impermanence of our experiences, impermanence of our, we've had pets in our life that have come and gone. We've had friends in our life that have come and gone. We've had a favorite sweater or favorite earring that we lost, and now we only have the one earring or whatever, like that flavor of impermanence. Like, well, so for instance, you've shared recently that like when you were talking to Todd, you talked about your your daughter who recently decided that, your she didn't want to further the connection with you. And how you were able to gracefully just allow so much spaciousness around that and not have an adverse reaction to it and just let it be. That's a form of impermanence.
yeah, I couldn't do that until like a couple of weeks ago, and I'm shocked and surprised that I did it. It's really okay if we never speak again. It's okay.
How did you get there?
Well, one, if it's like the 11th hour, which is not you let go a little bit, you let go. Now you have to let go of let go. So I don't know. It was just really serious this time. You really have to do this. You can't just mess around with this. So, and then something started to happen. Everything flipped around. Instead of looking at, I'm the parent, I influenced my child's life. I never really believed it was like that, anyways. So I used to build these goddesses out of clay. And my daughter would have been about 17 and a man at the time. And I hear my husband's voice going, see, because you built these things and went to women's circles, my son wants to be a woman. Flip it. I always knew because she said she always wanted to be a woman ever since she could remember, like as a child. The maternal bond is not dead. I knew what he wanted, but not in my person's mind, but my soul knew. And I'm building these goddesses to tell my child that you are magnificent, you are magical, and if you're magical, be a magical woman. So I flipped the order, I flipped it, uninverted it to I influenced him badly to I always knew, and I'm just voicing what I know. And I'm encouraging that child. Or I'm just telling my child I know his soul. The thing about parenthood, especially with my son, was inverted. It wasn't about the soul. You couldn't tell your child you knew their soul because the school system would scream at you. That's what I ended up with. But it wasn't a soul contract. It was a personal contract. It was a social contract. It was fit in behavior, food, clothing, shelter, or what. But my child, when you have a child and they're born, it's like when you're feeding your child, it's you are soul. That's all you are. And then you couldn't express that in any way. So yeah, I flipped it and I did that. And after I did that, I actually could do some transmission with my daughter, who can do that kind of stuff easy because she's like amazingly, her soul is enormous. And but she wouldn't. I just come up against the wall. And she told me what she was going through and how she was feeling. And neither she nor I have any clue whether we'll have anything to do with each other again. And it's not up to us. The spirit is writing this. And if it needs us together, we'll be together. If not, we'll do what we came here to do. I'm like, okay. Where did that come from? How did that happen? I have no idea. I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, you use this word letting go, and I'm certainly not correcting you. I just wanted to share a little bit about how I think of let go. I'm really finding a place of acceptance, and that allows me to surrender. Because, even with that experience, going back to the past life thing and the feet and all that, obviously I didn't let go of that because that followed me right into this lifetime, right? And in this class that I'm taking, where we're learning to transform emotions and beliefs, transform trauma, which are based in emotions and beliefs. Um, you know, it, our teacher was saying, like, think of this, like the brain, you can tell your brain let go, but your brain doesn't let go. Your brain needs somewhere to put it. And that's where the alchemy comes in. It's like when I give my emotions to Mother Earth or to the Divine Mother, and I give my beliefs to the Divine Father to be transformed and returned to me as energy, because, as you know, energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. So it really works because I am not just simply telling my brain, let it go. I'm actually accepting the emotion, accepting the belief, surrendering it to spirit, and alchemizing it, and shifting it into a different energy rather than holding on to it as an emotion or a belief. So I'm just telling you that I myself um,
okay.
am how I'm moving through that, because the let go, people always like to tell each other to let go, but
You
if it was
can't.
as easy as letting go, we wouldn't be holding on in the first place. So there had to be something else there, like, okay, I get that the end result, it was you would like to let go, not you, the pejorative you, or even myself, you, um uh but since that hasn't been working for us, how do we let go? What does that mean?
I think
And
the key to my daughter, letting go of my daughter, was the realization that I had that nothing that's going on now that's a problem will be resolved in the third or the fourth dimension. It's not going to happen here. There is no love anymore, if there ever was, in the third or the fourth dimension. It's got to be in higher to fifth and beyond. So that was like maybe the key that allowed all that to happen. And the other stuff was between 2010 and 2020, I did freedom practice with Tom Stone. First it was core dynamics coaching, and then it was freedom practice, and now it's something else. I don't, which was the same, was emotional processing. You felt the emotion fully. You pierced the emotion at its heart, which was silent, and released it, and then it would decode, and then I would know stuff that I didn't know that I knew. So I did. So first it was your personal emotional landscape, and then it started going collective. And in 2020, it got weird, though. It didn't work the way it used to anymore. And then he changed everything to scalar, so maybe that's why.
mm,
And yeah, and that was based on when I first started doing that, I had this transcendental meditation experience that when you experience your experience fully, so when you fully feel an emotion until it's completed, then you fell into silence. the experience of experience was pure awareness, right? And then I
Yeah.
had a whole 10 hours of quiet, which I've not had since. And so, yeah, so it was like, so that was meditation. It was interesting.
Mhm.
He studied with the Maharishi for 30 years or something.
Mm. Yeah, when I was about 28, well, when I was 19, my mom passed, um, and her sister was still alive, my aunt, and she um, was dancing with cancer, and she was, I mean, this was right when Deepak Chopra was just being introduced in the United States, and he had written one of his first books called Perfect Health. And she sent me a copy of it. She found it to be useful, and she thought that I might be interested. And I read it, and it was my first, because I know I have. I mean, I have past life. I have past lives with Tibetan medicine, which is a combination of Ayurveda and Chinese. I have past lives with Chinese medicine. I have, so all my past life connection to Ayurveda really came online when I read that book. And so at that point, Deepak and all these Maharishi Ayurveda centers were together. They hadn't split yet when I read that book, and so I took myself to one of those centers and lived for a week, and I got all the, the panchakarma and the sesame oil massages and the abhyanga and the eating according to your dosha and meditation and yoga every day. And man, it was awesome. I left shortly after for Mexico, but I will tell you that when I was at that center, it was in Lancaster, Massachusetts. When I left that center, I would sit, when I went to Mexico, I would sit in cafes and I would journal. And my writing it was almost like a typewriter. It was so clear and so steady, because my central nervous system was just so, I was just clean and clear and pure and relaxed, and it showed in my handwriting. I really could notice it. Um, if there's somebody listening or watching right now or on the replay, and you could impart one thing that, if it's the right moment and their heart is open, they're really going to be able to hear it. And it might be something that really helps them to navigate these times that we're going through. What would you say?
What my dad said?
You are light.
We are light, pure, glorious, creative, magnificent, which I'm not afraid of that, light. All stories and reasons are rendered null and void. We are only light. So when you go, but, it's not true.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't
Yeah,
know. I
my
don't
whole
know. I
body is
never knew what
tingling.
that meant, but it was good, man. It was really good.
Say it again. Say it again.
When I was a kid, like, do I know what that means? I don't. It doesn't matter. It was good. It was just really good. And then I read Castaneda mostly because he described the light body. And how do you describe something
Mhm.
that it's not physical? So I read all his books. At this point, I've read all his books 12, maybe on going on 13 times. But at first, it was just to get a sense of what the light body was, because my dad kept talking about I'm a light, so it must be this.
Mhm. So you've been an artist your whole life?
Since I was, no, after I had my second kid, so I was around 30-ish. And I
Oh,
met this
it came new
teacher,
to you. Like you weren't taking art classes in high school or anything?
and my sister was. She was the artist, and I was going to go into science, except I didn't understand it. So, yeah, my art teacher, my ceramics teacher well, he sits on that council sometimes that I'm on now. And he taught me process art, and he was very different. He was the quintessential teacher. He was really different. And it was just changed everything in my life. And, yeah.
And you're still doing art to this day. You always post your beautiful creations on Facebook, and I get to see them.
Well, I always experience transcendence. The first creative project he gave me, I had a thought which collapsed to there was no time, no space, and no things. And I broke into four, a physical body, an energy body, a witness, and whatever held that. And yeah, and that was only one of the transcendental experiences I would have when I did art the way he taught me to. So I always have those experiences when I do art. So I always go back because it feels so good.
What is the experience that feels so good?
Yes.
Just spaciousness, or remembering you are light, or something you can't describe, or something you can describe, or?
Well, ceramics is interesting, though I paint now too, because it's the elements, right? Earth, air, fire, and water. You're utterly integrated, completely integrated with the earth until it collapses to nothing. So it's like a dance, it's like sex. You dance with the earth until it collapses to silence, and then you have a creation. So yeah, it's like that.
That's awesome. Well, this has been a really fun conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much.
When we were talking about light earlier, you were talking about it. Oh, now, and as I'm talking about it again, my whole body is just tingling.
All right.
Yeah, I feel joyful. Any last words for us?
No, now I'm really nervous because my psychic skills have been getting really strong, and I took a mediumship class in January. I've been getting all this information for this person that I know, and I've decided I have to tell him what I'm getting, but I don't know if he's going to be insulted or not. So yeah, that's what I have to do next. I have to go pursue that.
So this is a class you're taking, or a group you're part of?
It was just 3 classes in January. They were psychic enhancement classes. Yeah. So it opened up my medium skills, and some friend had said they wanted to contact their child who had died many years ago. And I'm sitting here and I'm talking to his kid. I've never met his kid. I don't know him at all. Yeah. What do we do with this? So now I have to go tell him, and I don't know if he's going to throw me out or welcome me.
Oh, you have to tell him what his kid said?
Well, I don't have to tell him anything. I have to ask him if he wants to know. So we'll see. I'm nervous to do that.
Is that going to be today?
Yeah, that's it. I decided after this interview, that's what I'm going to do. So that's what I'm going to do.
Ooh. Well, just remember, you're light. The man who asked you the question is light, and the child is light. And
there you go.
The truth will be revealed.
All right.
Yes. Well, again, I'm very grateful, and I surely would welcome any more conversations like this if you wanted to have them in the future.
Oh, thank you very much. It was wonderful.
Okay. We will talk to you soon.
All right.
So,
have a good day.
I ask a little favor of you. So sometimes what I ask from my guests is to just sit tight even when I press end stream. So to the audience, it'll look like we're gone, but we'll still be here behind the scenes. I just want to say goodbye in person, not with an audience, if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to click end stream right now. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate you. If you find that this may be helpful to people in your life, please feel free to share it wherever you might share it on your social media platforms. We appreciate you. Thank you again. Go forth and remember, and keep remembering until you fully remember without question that indeed you are light. Thank you. Ciao, ciao.